Hello everyone, this is Akira. We are broadcasting again from Yamato manufacturing headquarters. And my name is Akira, and I'm going to be host for this class. And it's Megumi, my colleague, and she's making today. She's making a cold noodles today, and we want to have for the first time in a while. We want to have some workshops. We're gonna show you guys some sample cold noodle dishes in our kitchen for the first time in a while, and so please stay tuned. And in Japan, like we have different types of cold noodles. Like people eat almost every day, and like probably the most famous, most popular cold noodle household dish would be like kind of somen. Somen is like kind of probably thinnest cold noodles that we have in Japan, like for a long time, and then for every day, like when I was growing up, like every day, like I probably eat somen, which is like made up like wheat flour, like maybe water and salt only, and it's kind of from like kind of following like production method like Chinese noodles, like they pull the noodles, they pull the dough to make strands of noodles, and so that's kind of like most popular cold noodles, and then probably easiest to make. I mean, in terms like preparation. Um, Type of cold noodles. But anyway, so let's get started with the lecture. And then, so we are talking about basically three things in this lecture. And so why do we like to eat cold noodles, right? So why do people eat cold noodles? So understanding why, right? Then we can probably like figure out like so how we should make our cold noodles for our customers, right? And then, so we're going to talk about why first, and secondly, we're going to talk about types of cold noodles your business could start serving in your business. And the third topic we have is, we're going to talk about like how we can develop our own cold noodles, that are ready for takeout and delivery. The cold noodles, they are I mean, they're great for take on delivery, like which I'm going to talk about later. But and then we're going to do the demo using our noodle machine called Richmond Gold machine. Yigmi's going to do that. And after that, we're going to move to our noodle school kitchen. And our instructor is going to show you guys a few samples of cold noodle dishes. And we're going to do Q&A session, the last, right? So like, if you have any question during the class lecture or any time, please feel free to send them in the comments. We'll be more than happy to answer questions. Okay, so let's get started. So, why do we like to eat cold noodles, right? Why do we like to eat cold noodles? There are many reasons, but like I think there are like three basically like so. First one maybe like the noodle texture. So cold noodles has like its own like distinctive noodle texture, and people particularly like this kind of texture, and gonna talk about a lot more about it later. But like, and then secondly, like that's ease of consumption. So like it's easy to eat, um, and we enjoy so like sense of seasonality, like being in the summer. We like when eating like some cold, or like chilled, we feel like, oh yeah, it's no, it's a summer day, it's a summer season, and because of the weather, right? So being hot, like humid, especially in Japan, we want some like refreshment, like um, being outside like for a few hours or something like in a hot day. It's exhausting, so we want some kind of refreshment. So we eat cold noodles. So noodle texture, right, is very important, like in terms of like cold noodles. And so this picture is kind of typical, or what we call like Sanuki Udon noodle, like it's the most famous udon noodles in the world. Kind of originated in this prefecture, where we're headquartered. Kagawa Prefecture, and so this is this very thick noodles, and then that's probably the thickest cold noodle that's out there, and then so it's very soft but like chewy at the same time, like making them cold, the noodles get hardened, so they they sort of become hard, but like at the same time, like when you chew on it, like they are very very bouncy and chewy. So noodle texture, when we are cooking, when we are like preparing cold noodles, so we have to go through this process. So like we like from fresh noodles to chilled noodles, like we have to first like of course like boiled noodles, right? Like we have to cook noodles like in boiling water. As we do that, right, the hardness, the noodles, well, it softens, right? It softens, but like the temperature of the noodle like actually rises, because the noodles are put into uh, boiling water, so it's temperature rises, but like then we have to wash them because we have to like well get rid of the starch of the noodle surfaces. So like we wash them like in the tap water, running water, and so the hardness, yeah, so the hardness like it softens, right? Like kind of, it hardens a little bit with the cold, with the help like cold tap water, and the temperature, gradually decreases, drops, right? Because the water, right? And then after that, we have like make a chilled the ice water, probably putting like all these like ices, right? Ice cubes um, to lower like further lower the temperature, right? Like to and then so outer surface noodles like it's hardened and the temperature drops, right? Temperature like drops, so it's like as we that like it gets softer and it gets harder, and then the temperature increases like but like drops, and then so it's soft outside. I mean, it's soft like chewy inside, but like gets like hardened outside, and it well brings out like this kind of distinctive the noodle texture. And so the second one, like ease of consumption. Of course, if you go to like if you go to ramen shop and you have a choice of like well hot soup noodle and then like cold noodles, right? And then well if you order like hot soup noodle, you have to well of course like you have to like well cool it, right? You have to cool it, and then you have like cool like you have to make it cool enough for you to be able to like comfortably eat it. So the slowly, right? And so it's and like cold noodles. It's just easy, right? Just because it's you can just go ahead and like like, start digging in, right? But like um, if it's hot, then you have to like cool it, and then like it's just it's hard to eat. But like cold, well, case with cold noodles, like you can just like dig right in. So it's easy, it's easier, and so that's and then because it's in the summer and now being outside like in a hot day for sometime and like your body temperature is high, and then you want to eat something cold, like well it doesn't really decrease your body temperature by eating it, but like you get sort of like temptation to eat it, right? And of course, like sense of seasonality, just being summer, by eating something cold, it's like going to like Starbucks and then, well, you have a choice like, ordering like hot coffee or like iced coffee, and then, you want to drink like iced coffee to feel what you have a sense of like seasonal, like being summer and or refreshment, right? And then, like as you can see in this picture, right? You have like diced tomatoes and like onions and like all these like well ingredients that they match like with like everything all the other like ingredients that kind of give you refreshment out of like hot and humid summer day. So that's another reason that you want to we want to eat like cold noodles. Right, so three types of cold noodles that you could start serving. Right, so there are many types of cold noodles that are popular in Japan that people eat in Japan. But I just categorize them into like three types, and one of them is like dipping noodles. So dipping noodles, there are many types of dipping noodles, like was like udon, you call it zaru udon, and in terms of like ramen, we have like tsukemen. Then like we chill the noodles and the soup, the dipping soup, like maybe hot, but like the noodle itself, like it's kind of cold and chilled, right? And then also there was like soba, right? And so this dipping noodles is very common. And then you have like cooked noodles, right? Cooked and like drained noodles, and then you have like a bowl of dipping sauce. And then as for toppings and condiments, like they are not they don't really they don't there's not many like much of a variety like typically. So we kind of like focus on like noodles and the sauce, like dipping sauce. And another type that we typically have like or cold noodle dishes that like it's kind of hard to like name this category, but like I just named like pour over like mix up type. So this type of cold noodles, we have like famous chuka, like which is basically ramen noodles like that are cooked and chilled, and like and the toppings like we put like variety of like well shredded ham, like shredded like omelet, and like tomatoes, like shreds of like cucumbers, like kind of lined up like nicely, and we just pour sauce that's sour, vinegar and like soy sauce, the other seasoning, and then what we do is just we just pour this sauce over and then just stir everything up and eat it. And we have like pasta version of it, and we have like udon version of it, and we even have like soba version of it. So like there are many varieties this category. And this category we because as you can see in this picture, right, the toppings, condiments, like there are many varieties, and like typically like they put like all these like diced stuff, like diced ingredients, and then shredded um, vegetables, kind of like smaller pieces, and they just make it like easier to eat, and kind of nicely kind of mixed up with the noodles. So it's easier to eat, and like texture wise, it's it's better. So um, typically we see like all these toppings like garnish are they're like kind of cut into smaller pieces. And the third type is basically like noodle soup type. So yeah, so like, this is just hot soup noodle, but the soup is cold, and like the soup is like typical light, and um, but toppings, they could be they could be like a lot of stuff like that. Can be like topping the yeah the noodles. And so this type of soup, this type of like noodle cold noodle dish is it's not rare. Like we see them like this type of like cold noodle dish like certain regions of Japan. And yeah, so certain people like to have like this well certain amount of soup. Um, it's kind of refreshing, like it's lighter, and then the flavor, and they kind of probably look for more for like kind of aroma coming out of like all these stock. And for example, like terms like udon noodles, udon noodle dish, they typically use like fish stock and soy sauce, seasoning, and then it's like they make it like really light and refreshing. So let's summarize all these three types of whole noodle dishes. And so like soup or sauce, the dipping noodles like different dipping sauce, but they could be like either like hot or cold version. And for the pour over like mixed types sauce, um, yeah, then it's either like room temperature, like or like they make it cold. And soup noodle type, like cold, goes like the soup is cold chilled. And so the flavor and the density, this like across the board, like they tend to be lighter. And there's a reason for it, because like if it's ramen noodles and like they make ramen soup, right? They use, for example, like there's some kind of fat or like pork bone stock that has like certain amount of fat, right? And then like this animal type of fat like doesn't you know can't well stay in liquid form, above like below a certain temperature. So when talking about cold noodles, because the temperature is like low, right? So like they solidify. So it's just like not really good. Um, it doesn't give it a good texture. It doesn't give it good taste. Kind of not refreshing at all. So it tends to be lighter and um, it's sour, salty. But like in case of like tsukemen, like dipping noodles, like dipping ramen noodles, sometimes they use, of course, like heavy stock. The noodles are cold, but like the sauce itself may be hot. So um, pour over mixed type, so light soy sauce and like with vinegar and citrus base and soup noodle type, light soy sauce, or like salt base. And toppings garnish. Um, so typically they're simple like nori, chopped scallions, ground ginger for dipping noodles. And pour over mixed type, we should think about, focus on like what we use for ingredients, for the veggies and like protein. And soup noodle type can be variety of ingredients, but like no strong flavor that overwhelm the soup taste. And types of noodles like so like dipping noodles, somen typically, and udon soba, ramen, tsukemen, and for like this type, um, like we have like famous chuka soba, like the mazemen ramen and udon soba. For soup noodle type, udon and soba and ramen. Okay? And I could add like somen to it too. And so for the noodles, the dipping noodle like tend to be thick, big, to very thin. And I'm talking about somen. And for mixed up type, can be medium to like relatively large size. And soup noodle type, whole soup, like tend to be small in size. Okay, so let's start talking about how to develop your own cold noodle dishes. And I think like three things you need to think about when developing cold noodle dishes. And so, well, there are many ways, but let's focus on these three. Um, so decide on what kind of noodle dish you want to make, right? So like kind of think about as kind of package and what to include, what not to, and second one, like design on like noodle texture, size and shape, and then you should we should think about like components and option components of the package. I mean the dish, right? And then what kind of options you want to have for your customers. So decide what you go for. The options. So again, like this table, looking at this table, like you could base your cold noodle dish on like one of these categories, one of like these categories, or like or two. And so, for example, like we have cold noodle dish A, right? And then so the noodles, we want it to be, we wanted them to be like chewy, gummy. So the noodle size shape should be this. And hydration, I'm going to talk about later, but like, kind of high, medium, high. And ingredients, okay, so, this is not for gluten-free um, group. So like just we're gonna use wheat flour, and it's make it like kind of hichuka kind of noodles. So use kansi water and bacon green by adding spinach powder. And for the sauce, like we want it to be light and soy sauce base, and soup, and like sour like hot with a chili, some just a little bit of chili powder. For the toppings and garnish, like we want to use vegetables, and for protein, we're gonna do the chicken breast, or some types of beans, right? For the garnish, like I'm probably use like crushed nuts or something. Okay, so this is just like how you kind of, well, one of the ways like could think about it. And so noodles, so I said like noodle shape, size is important for your noodles texture and hydration, and whether they're curly, straight, and if it's curly, right, how curly do you want them to be, right? And do we want like some flavors, colors, and other attributes like chili flavored, green color, like gluten-free, etc., right? And so again, like this is chart like I've been using a lot throughout the class, and then it's yeah, it's just a chart that like describes noodle texture of like different noodles, different types of noodles, and protein content. The higher burn flour, higher the harder hydration ratio, like the higher softer. And on the right hand side, like you have noodle sizes. And so, if we want like noodle texture to be hard, then, we want to, like for the ingredients, we want a higher protein for the flour, right? And then hydration, we want to make it low. Um, but for the noodle size, if we make the hydration ratio low, like we should make the noodle size thin. And in terms of serving size, and so this is how like kind of one of the ways like we can think of our how we want to like develop our noodles. And hydration ratio, and then dough size. So this with the higher the hydration ratio, like the bigger the dough, and actually softer the texture, dough texture. And for cold noodles, yeah, we're talking about like we don't want it to be like too dry, which means that like we would have to like make the noodle size like really thin. Um, and so I think like we are talking about like over 33% towards, you know, maybe like up to 40. Yeah. Like if you're making like it in ramen noodle machine, which you're doing today. So this is another way to think about your noodles. And so ramen noodle A, yes, we should think about your noodles like in terms of like solid ingredients and liquid ingredients and noodle size. Solid ingredients we have like different types of wheat flours, and we could like blend them like at different ratios to bring out like certain texture. And liquid ingredients, we may have like salt, water, and if it's, yeah, it's ramen noodles, so like we have like kansi, which is basically potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. And noodle size and shape, we should think about noodle size in terms of like thickness and width, and the shape, right? In this case, like square, and then whether it's like curled or not straight. So this is a typical sort of noodle size different like noodle size, like using different cutters, the shapes. And I've gone through like these slides in the previous class, like when we talked about like how ramen machines make noodles. So you guys can like if you are interested like more about these, like you can just check out our previous recordings on these previous classes. So square like rectangle like flat, you can make it round shape like edgy shape like, and then we could do the reverse cut. Um, it's like thickness is bigger than the width. And how we make curly noodles, right? How we make curly noodles, we can make them well using these basically the two well a set of like a pair of the silicone plates that like you know they're very elastic, like they bend over, and then so we put them in the back of the cutter, and as the noodles tries to like gets slitted like into noodle strands, and then like they come out right out of the noodle cutter, and these two silicone plates like kind of block them, and then the noodles get stuck in there for a while, and then like the cutter gets like another servings of like noodles, and then the noodles like gets the noodles that are stuck in there like they have to like be well um, released eventually, but like in the process like it gets curly, it gets squished and inside and it gets curly. So that's how we make curry noodles, and then by changing the position of these plates, you can make, adjust the curliness of your noodles. Um, and so this is the tsukemen noodles, tsukemen noodles, right? And as you may be able to see that this is flat noodles. This is flat noodles, so the width is bigger, like a lot bigger than the thickness, and you maybe like notice that like there are some like whole grain needed in them. So um, this is like probably you can make like one of your kind of healthier options than just using like regular like white wheat flour. And so another important aspect like cold noodle texture is that like probably the thickest cold noodles we could do um, is probably Sanuki udon, like I was talking about before. And Sanuki udon, like typically the thickness is 3 millimeter, width is 5 millimeter, and that's pretty thick. And because of the thickness, right, it takes 10 to 12 minutes to cook them to be cold noodles. And in comparison, right, there's somen, that's the product thinnest cold noodles, and that's 1.3 millimeter. The cooking time is only like 1.5 minutes. So basically, the bigger the noodle size, of course, the longer the cooking time, but like the harder the noodle texture, and the smaller the noodle size, the softer. It's kind of a no-brainer, but the point I want to make here is, well, like cooking time, right? So, if you're cooking the same noodle size, like same size of noodles, like, the Sanuki udon noodles, like 3 times 5. Um, if you are cooking them for different noodle dishes, for example, the hot soup noodles, it takes 8 minutes, 8 minutes for a reason. And okamage, like that's just the dish that like it's kind of a dipping noodle dish, but like I don't know, we use a long cooking time. We cook them and then take on the noodles like right out of the like hot pot, and then serve them in the bowl with cooking water without removing the starch. And that's one dish that's kind of like unique, but like that's the shortest. That's a dish that like takes the shortest amount of like cooking time. And but when we look at cold noodles, it takes about 10 to 12 minutes. Why does it take that much, like 2 to 4 minutes longer than hot soup noodles. Is that like why is that, right? And so we kind of like overcook them for the same type or same size noodle for cold noodles. Why is that, right? And so we cook noodles, right? And then so we have to wash and chill them. We wash first wash like to get rid of starch, and then chill them, right? And then when we're chilling the noodles with the ice water, um, the noodles, right? The noodle texture gets hardened, so that's why like they become harder than like just cooked noodles. So that's why we kind of overcook them. And so like as I was kind of explaining like at the beginning of the lecture, like so they cook them like so then the texture like I'm softer, but like when we washed them and chilled them, then the noodle gets harder, like the texture gets harder, like because the noodle texture like gets tightened from the ice water. That's why we overcook them and then yeah, chill them. Yeah, wash them and chill them. Yeah. Okay, so components and options like so we in terms of like soup, noodles, sauce. I mean soup sauce, noodles and toppings or garnish. And in terms of like your menu, you have like just standard menu like I didn't have like better word for it, but like just standard like so no restrictions. So like just wheat-based noodles like size medium to thick. For the soup like fish and animal type based soup base. The like kind of sour and sweet taste like flavors, like lighter taste, soy sauce, um, seasoning, etc. Right? Or like you could have like use like salt-based sauce and toppings and garnish. Protein like any kind of like animal type, like vegetable, like crushed nuts, like citrus juice, etc. And you could have like vegetarian version, and for the noodles, like you could have like same standard or the soba noodles, like but like it doesn't necessarily have to be like gluten free, like gluten free noodles, which could be made from rice. For the soup sauce, like vegetable, like fruit, like lentil based soup base, and for the toppings of vegetable, like nuts, lentil ingredients, or like same as a vegan option. So, so the gluten-free noodles, the like buckwheat, of course, 100% rice, other types of starch, maybe like potato starch. So vegan options or for the soup, right? Vegan options are the same as like standard. This people just want to eat like gluten-free, if not using any gluten ingredients, right? So the toppings, could you do like same as standard, like for vegan options? For the vegan option, like for the noodles, like same as standard, like gluten-free options. For the soup, sauce, vegetables, like lentil, like fruit-based soup sauce with like soy sauce, citrus seasoning. The toppings, lentils such as like chickpeas, like tofu steaks, slices of avocado, etc. Right? And so how they should be processed, right? And like again, like noodles, like they need to be overcooked, washed, and chilled with ice water. And for the soup, right? And then they should be light, right? And it usable oil such as like olive oil, like sesame oil, if necessary, and then yeah. So people like go for like sour flavor, citrus typically. So we should have that. And again, like I kind of explained before, but like cut out all the ingredients into shreds or like thin slices for easier consumption. But I think what's important, like when thinking about components options, like we don't have, we don't want to have like you know too many components options, too many components that kind of specifically like kind of or made for certain options. So like for example, like we have like components specifically made for the noodles, specifically made for like gluten-free or like vegetarian or vegan. We want to have like as many components as possible to that are like kind of can be commonly used across the options. Um, you know, if you have like vegan soup, that's so good that like these non-vegan people like are like will be like craving, right? Then we may not have to have any soup option that's like animal based, animal type based. Like we probably we could use this vegan soup across the board, right? So having like all these high quality noodles like soup or all these like components that can be applicable like that like um, all like kind of like over, sur surpass like all these like restrictions, then you know economically right speaking, it's better, and we don't have to make all these components and then um, that just then if you can't sell them, like they could be waste, right? So yeah, so let's try to like develop you know the soup or like all these components that are like kind of can be applied across the board. Yeah, I think that's important. So and the temperature, like this cold noodles, so like we should be aware of like all these temperatures, like in different temperatures, and so even though it's like cold noodles, these all these components like are dealing with like all these different temperature zones, and yeah, and of course like boiling water like 100 degrees Celsius, and then for cooking noodles like properly, effectively, we need to have like boiling water, boiling water to be able to like cook noodles properly, and so that like noodles are gelatinized and they're cooked well, and that would make like a big difference in terms of like noodle quality. So and again, like if you're using some kind of fat or like if you're using, for example, like tonkotsu broth, right? Then the fat, right? The fat like this like start melting up from 30 to like 40 degrees Celsius. So like if your soup is like below that temperature, then these fat maybe like start solidifying, right? Like yeah, it's like a kind of jelly, kind of gelatin, kind of um, yeah, solid. So that's it's not refreshing, or like that may not be good like for drinking or sipping like slopping. So you should be aware of that. So and then danger zone, right? This danger zone like well defined by like FDA, but like different countries have like different varying like temperature, food temperatures, um, but basically, so the cold noodles, because they're just basically cold, so it's great, for in terms of like well clearing for this like danger zone temperatures, because they are basically cold, and also we should think about well freezing some of the components, maybe soup, if they don't affect like freezing them, like doesn't affect the quality of the soup, or like the toppings or all the like different parts. Maybe like we could freeze them, and because some like delivery, taking them home or like delivering them to customer's house, it takes time, and it's like ambient temperature is like high, right? And then they melt, and then or like what is it, food like soup temperature like increases, and quickly like get into like danger zone. So we could yeah, think about like freezing some of the parts, some of the components as well. Right, so yeah, some of the ideas that you could use for your takeout delivery cold noodles, noodle dishes, noodle items. So this is basically a container that that's supposed to hold like some beverage, right, in it, but like we use it as well, like noodle dish container, and they're beautiful and they're like in different colors, and then you can just you don't even have to have like separate container for your sauce, right? You can just put it in there, and then like customers like just buys it and then like brings it home and then like store it and eat it. So this is a very good, I think, idea. And like this is a paper container, and it has like noodles at the bottom, and then it's a vegan option, and yeah, it's got like toast steaks, and then the slice of avocado, cucumbers, like all these good stuff, right? And then you have like separate container that contains the dipping sauce, and this is a tsukemen takeout dish, and well, tsukemen, like you, of course, you have to cook them and then wash them and to get rid of starch, right? But like when you like put this noodle like in a container like this, and then when customer takes it home, and then tries it, and then the noodles get stuck, right? Even though you wash them like to well remove all the starch, they like over time like they stuck together, right? So um, then you could you maybe like notice that like there's a separate container like containing this water, and then customers like can like pour this water over the noodles, and then like to disentangle them, and then well like get them separated, right? And then you could do uh, just not just regular water, but like you could do like kind of kombu water, just like kelp infused water, and then to use it like get separated, and then you can get to add like another flavor, kind of seafood flavor as well with the noodles. So that's a good idea as well. And um, this is another one that's so this is a great spinach kneaded noodles like in the center, surrounded by all these different garnish and toppings, and yeah, so this is yeah. Then I has this separate container that contains the kind of like hot and sour sauce, and this is a tip what's the measurement, and well yeah, place in like clear container, and it's got all these colors, and it's very it's a very good idea too. All right, so this is what I had for this lecture, and but before we start the demo, yeah, I'd like to just just explain like we have these locations: Singapore, New York, Amsterdam, like Seoul, Korea, and it's on Japan, right? So yeah, bad thing about this kind of class is that like we make the all these noodles and then, like show you guys like few dishes, but like we can't you know let you try them. So yeah, for those of you like who are kind of near all these locations, like you can well contact us and like or let us know like if you're interested in trying them out, like like or seeing demo of these machines. And we can do private demos that are available by appointment. You can go onto our website and like, well, there's a form for a private demo, and then you can sign up for your seat, and then like, you can, yeah, at HQ, like we have like noodle making experts, professionals, and you can ask questions, you can talk about like, your project, you can talk about your business project, and you can ask your ask the noodle making experts questions like how, and then um, ingredients, where you can obtain like certain ingredients, etc., right, for your noodles. And we have a lot more resources available at yamatonoodle.com. And for those who are interested in watching the previous classes, that you can check out the recordings on the YouTube channel, Yamato Noodle. So please check them out. And so, okay, let's do the demo on Richmond Gold. Yeah, so this is a Richmond Gold machine, but like before, yes, this is a Richmond Gold machine, and it's a all-in-one machine, and it's one of the most advanced noodle machine that we have. And so one, like Megumi is making the noodles for cold noodles, and these are the ingredients. And so we've got ramen wheat flour, which has like protein content of like around like 11%, and um, this is a whole egg. Um, some people like may not be familiar with whole egg powder, eggs in powder form, but whole egg powder, and then it's the kansui, potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate, and this salt and water, right? So she's adding all these solid ingredients into the mixer first. So this machine like controls all the functions using this touch panel. And so first thing we do is that like we mix up like all these solid ingredients in the mixer without any liquid added to it. And while the machine is doing that, like she's mixing, dissolving all these kansi and salt to the water, right? And just make sure you like all these salt and kansi are thoroughly dissolved to the water. So this is a liquid that is going to add to the flour, the solid ingredients. So she's setting the timer. So first we do 4 minutes, and we're adding just about like half to 2/3 of the water first, and then mixing it for 4 minutes first. And after that, we're gonna add like the rest of the water and then mix it for like another 6 minutes. So we mix it for total of 10 minutes for this type of dough. And yeah, then we can keep watching it for now 10 minutes, but like she prepared like dough beforehand. And so what she's doing now is like she's feeding it to the roller to make a sheet of dough first. And what's great about this machine is that like it just does it for you. Like you don't have to use your hand to manually feed the dough into roller, but it just does it for like automatically. And um, and then like there are sensors equipped in this machine, and like these sensors actually detecting like how much of the dough is like going in at a time, like, and then um, so it just automatically like adjust the speed of the conveyor belt like that's carrying the dough into the roller. And so, you don't have to like worry about, dough not being like fed to the roller and then like, so you can just let it do the job. And so what's happening right now is that like she tried to put her hand through sensors. Um, so there are beams like running like kind of, well, the lines, like these lines that you maybe like see. But there was an invisible beams like running kind of horizontally like through, so that if you try to put your hand in there like that, this machine detects your hand, and so it just automatically stops the operation, so that there's no danger of your hand like going into the roll end and like being become like sheet of sheet of that becoming a part of the dough. Um, so this is one of the most like advanced, well, safety feature, probably installed in like any noodle machines. Yeah. So the first part of mixing is done, and then like it lets you know that it's done, by alarm, and we just continue on the sheeting part. So continue with mixing, like adding the rest of the water and mix it for 6 more minutes. Right. So the first process, like of the sheeting process, like we call it uh, rough forming of dough sheet. So after that, right, what we're going to do is that like we're going to um, put them like separate it actually into two sheets, and we are going to put them together through the rollers. So we call it like combining process. So by combining two separate sheets of dough, we can make them firm. We can make them hard, stronger. So combining them. So just roughly like make it kind of half and half, and combining them through the rollers. So after you set these rolling pins in position in place, um, you can let them go, and and because see, like, notice that, like, there are sensors, right? There are sensors, like, when you're doing the first, like, wrap forming process, and but, like, once you, like, close the safety gate, like, these sensors that are, like, running the beams across, right? It's not working, but, like, because you have, like, safety gate, like, already closed, like, protecting the hand from going to the rollers. So you can work beyond the, sensor beams with your hands. So now, going through the first combining process, that the surface dough, like, comes, like, kind of coming smoother and smoother. Basically, the dough is, like, firmer, stronger. So we want to go through another round of combining process just to make sure that the gluten structure inside the dough, like, is being developed thoroughly. So again, like, we're separating it into sheets, and then feeding it to rollers. It's the second combined process, and after this, we're gonna go, like, after this process, like, the noodle dough, like, texture is complete. So all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness. And so the thickness is basically determined by the roller gap, right? Like, how narrow the roller gap is set. Then the dough goes through it to be thin, right? But the width, right? Width, like, is only determined by the cutter that we use, and the size of the cutter is determined by, like, each groove, like, in the cutter. And so the thickness is determined by the roller gap, but width is determined by the cutter size. All right, so after this process, after, like, second combined process, like, we want to start using the duster. We want to dust the dough to keep it from sticking. And because after, like, combining process, like, we want the dough to stick together, right? We want, like, to combine it, like, to stick together and become one. But um, from this point on, like, we want a dough to keep from sticking. So we start dusting. And of course, you can control, like, amount of dusting you do depending on the hydration ratio. The higher the hydration ratio, like, because it's wetter, it's more prone to sticking. So we want to dust more. And if you're making like drier noodle, like Hakata style, thin noodle, like dry noodles, then you probably like don't dust at all. Okay, so he's measuring the actual thickness of dough, and that's 2.4 millimeter, 2.4 millimeter, and then actual thickness of dough is that always bigger than the roller gap that we set, because it's a dough like wheat dough, so it just bounces back like after it's gone through the roller gap. So we should, I mean, we need to like measure the actual thickness dough to see the difference between the roller gap and actual thickness, so that we know how much the dough expands back, and so by knowing that difference, we can know what the roller gap like we need to set to get the final thickness we want. And so this is a color that we are using, like this is the kind of color that we use. And then number 16, that's like 1.8, like almost, yeah, 2.0 millimeter width. So each group of the cutter, um, makes a strand of noodles. And so that just determines the noodle width. And not a great feature of like this Richmond Gold machine is that like the point where she catches the noodles, right? The noodles are coming out. It's kind of high, right? It's actually 90 centimeters from the ground, and just imagine, right? Like if you set this up, like if you set this machine up like in front of your store, your shop, restaurant, or like even central kitchen, and you just shoot it like and then like broadcast like at your noodle shop or something, and you can show your customers the actual scenes that your noodles are coming out, right? So um, this is great. I mean, so it's a like piece of equipment that like also like works as you know um, kind of like entertainment, fact, like so it's got like some entertainment factors as well. And so if you have like this machine in front of a restaurant, right, and then like if you have a glass window and like people can see walking by, right, and then they can watch this machine, and like there's a like long queue, right, long queue like waiting, then they have to wait, like the people hate to wait, right, but like just watching this machine in work or operation, and you know this machine is like making noodles like in front of their eyes, and then and these are the noodles they would actually they would actually eat, right, in like matter of like 10 minutes, like 30 minutes or something. So so this is great, like then gives them like piece of like sense of safety, that their noodles are actually being made in front of their eyes. They're not like any kind of noodles like they buy like from somewhere they don't know. They, like, so that's great. Like, what you're gonna eat is, being made like freshly in front of their eyes. That gives them like, yeah, definitely, sense of safety. Uh, and the food safety like being like really big issue, right? I mean, in the food industry, like especially like the dining industry, um, especially recently. So, um, yeah, it's something to think about. And so, yeah, by placing this machine in the center as a centerpiece of your business, I think you'll do great. I mean, your business will do great. Um, Entertaining factor, like, yeah, and then kind of providing the like customers like sense of, like safety, like just like peace of mind, that they don't have to worry about like what they're going to like put them in the mouth, put it in the mouth, and then um, yeah, just freshly made, and oh, so just great to watch them. Um, Great to watch that like their noodles are just being cut into noodle strands and like and then coming out of this like piece of beautiful equipment like in front of their eyes. That's great, right? And so that's how like noodles are made like on these rich mangold like cold noodles are made on rich mangold machine, and it's very easy to for you to be able like make a different serving sizes. Like you just have to like make different length, like adjust the length of noodles, and so it's very easy. And then like again, if you want to make them curly, then as I explained like in the lecture, like you just have to like put the parts on the back of the cutter to make the noodles get stuck in there, like, and then they come out like they get squeezed, like they pushed out, and in the process they get curly. So it's very easy to use, and um, a lot of processes are automated, and so like anyone, you know, who's not, who doesn't have like any experience, like can actually start making great noodles in a matter of like a day or two. And please remember, like you have to put like cover like in the noodle like this kind of plastic bag so that like they don't get dried over time. If they're exposed to air, like they dry, and then it's not good for quality of noodles. So remember that. All right, so let's move to the kitchen, and we have like few cold noodle dish samples to show you guys. And so this is the kitchen that we use for our noodle school. And so yeah, so like in Japan, right? Like we, even though like there's a situation with the COVID, like we've been actually conducting like noodle schools like from time to time in Japan only, but like um, yeah, the last few months, like we had like a couple classes for udon and ramen, and so this kitchen like is equipped with you know and induction cookers, like big and small ones, for better like cooking environment, better working environment for our students, and they are very, very powerful, and they can cook up like any kind of like, you know, the stocks like tonkotsu, heavy stocks to like very light chicken stocks like fish stocks, veggie. Yeah, so like yeah, this kitchen like kind of small, but like we can like teach up to like 8 people at a time, and it's like one-on-one type of like kind of training that we do like over the course of like 1 week. And so yeah, I hope like you guys will like attend it. And then in the meantime, like we are preparing e-learning courses that we are hoping to be able to like replace like some of the real classes, the curriculums that we have at school. So stay tuned. And all right, so instructor is like it. I like like is generous enough for to show us a few examples of like cold dishes, and so thank you, Mr. Ikeda. And um, so let's get started.
はい、じゃあよろしくお願いします。はい、今日は冷たいかけうどんと、冷やし中華ですね、の2品作っていきます。
Okay, so what he's going to show is like that cold udon dish that we call like bukake udon dish, and then another one like that's cold ramen we call like kind of typical like hiyashi chuka cold noodle dish. So
これは立麺ゴールドで作っていただいたうどんの麺です。
so this is a udon noodle that we actually made maybe we made like in the Richmond Gold machine,
これちょっと8分ほど入れていきます。
and we cook them for 8 minutes. 8 minutes. So again, like we need to have the water prepared, like boiling water prepared, before we add noodles in there. And I said like in the lecture, I said like the cold noodles cooking time, udon noodles, cold udon noodles cooking time for like 10 to 12 minutes. But like for these udon noodles, that's thinner than the Sanuki udon noodles, so the cooking time is shorter. Okay, these are noodles for like hiyashi chuka.
はい、こちらですね、先ほど製麺した麺ですね、こちらを手でちょっと揉んだものがこちらになります。
Okay, so the noodles like maybe we made right like just now is like this one like straight, but like Mr. Ikeda like well rub them, squeeze them like to make them curly by hand. So this is the kind of typical curly noodles that we use for
こちら今日使っていき
get chuka. All right. So let's start cooking.
ます。茹で時間3分ですね。茹でていきます。
So cooking time is 3 minutes.
はい、茹でてる間に具材の方を
All right. So while we're cooking them, like let me explain the ingredients, the toppings.
で冷やし中華ですけども、日本の代表的な具材ですね。こちら卵ですね。
So
卵。
it's a typical like ingredients, the toppings that we use, like garnish that we use, like typical in Japan, like for here this type of noodle dish, and so it's like kind of like omelet, like about like egg omelet, about like kind of sliced thinly to like some like shreds, and
ハム
ham,
ですね。ハム。で、キュウリ。
it's like Japanese cucumbers,
チャーシュー。
the chashu, like pork,
も
pork,
やし。
and then this is bean sprouts,
で、
and
トマト。
tomatoes.
で、よくそれで使われるのがですね、こちらが紅生姜ですね。
And this is kind of typical, like you use as a garnish, and that's ginger, like kind of marinated like in vinegar.
こちらを使っていきます。で今日はテイクアウト用ということで、器が置いたものを用意しているのと、これは別添えで使っています。
So for take a container, like if he prepare like this container, like clear plastic container, and then he have the sauce like put in that kind of small container.
じゃあ次、具の方ですね、かける具材です。
As for udon dish,
はい、今日は天ぷらのぶっかけうどんの想定してますので、今回は4種類ですね、天ぷらの方をご用意しました。
so like this bukake udon, like it is a type of like noodle cold noodle dish, like I was talking about, like that's mixed up type, and so tempura, different types.
はい、まいたけ、
It's a kind of mushroom like we call it maitake,
ちくわ、
like kind of like fish cake
かぼちゃ、
and pumpkin and
で、エビです。
prawn. Okay.
で、こちらがそれの薬味ですね。
And then these are garnish that you prepare like
こちらネギと大根と生姜になります。
chopped up scallion, like ground daikon, radish, and the ground ginger.
はい。では器はこういった四角いお弁当みたいな形ですね。
And so he prepared like this kind of square shape, like the plastic, and kind of he had an image like kind of bento box, being square. So I was
日
thinking,
本でも丸亀製麺とかね、丸のっていう感じで。
right. So like some like famous udon shop chains like actually started offering what they call like udon bento box. So kind of mimic that kind of product. All right, so let's finish it. First, do the cold ramen dish. So again, like we have to wash it to remove the starch, right? I mean, the more you wash them, like the more you remove the starch, the less likely, the noodles get stuck like after that. So and make sure you strain the water as much as you can, like so squeeze them out. And to prevent them from sticking, right? So she put a bit of like sesame oil, and like kind of coat the noodles with sesame oil so that like they don't stick later. And then at the same time you can add like good flavor of sesame oil, the noodles themselves. Okay, let's plate it. Yeah, so like this time around, like I'm just using like these ingredients, these toppings for these toppings. But like you can definitely like make them like you can use like any kind anything. But you should remember that like you should make the shapes of like all these toppings to like kind of same shapes, kind of small pieces, so that they can like so when you're eating it with the noodles, they give you good texture and like with the noodles. So and I noticed like that he cut each of the ingredients like in the same size, like same shapes, so they appear beautiful, right? And then at the same like time, like in texture wise, the noodles is very like well balanced. And topping tomatoes. And adding the marinated ginger top in the center. Okay, so that's done for chuka. Okay, so let's start with udon. Okay, so I'm gonna wash them to remove the starch. So as you wash them, right, like you need to, because like the starch is like kind of well dissolved in the washing water, like on the water, right, and then so like the water gets dirtier, and as you can notice, like she's like frequently changing the water, and well, I think if you're washing like great amount like noodles, like I think you have to have like a bigger bowl, and you should have to have like you should like change the water like more frequently.
では、お皿にご質問いきます。
Okay, so let's plate it.
こちらの麺でいいと見せたいので、絞らずにこのまま手で取りながら、水分を絞ってもう一度。
Okay, so what I want to do is that like we usually like squeeze the noodles like to well like strain the water like as much water as possible. But this time around, like I want like make it look good in the box. So I'm going to like kind of like comb the noodles through the fingers and like kind of straighten them, and then yeah, just directly put the noodles to the container. Just make it look good. And as you can see, like I made some space for these toppings to go in. So my taki mushroom, chikua fish cake, and a pumpkin, and and a prawn.
あとは入れるところですね。大根。
And I'm gonna put like there's a I don't know daikon radish and ginger and scallion. So yeah, notice like I made like a space, right? Like using the noodles, um, how you place the noodles, right? So I made some space, and then at the same time like I'm showing the beautiful service with noodles.
こちらと、はい、顔をして、
And so that's the udon bento box. Okay, so we have two types of cold noodle dish like that are great for takeout and delivery. And yeah, and then like you know you can make actual like any kind of like um, cold noodle dishes like like applying like what we talked about today, and using local ingredients, and you can make them like vegan, you can make them like gluten free, yeah, and that's yeah, it's just up to like your ideas, like up to your like imagination. So and like up to your like maybe like your customers like preferences, like requests. So that's cold noodles, and I think like cold noodles like is really good for delivery and takeout nowadays. And like even like it's not like in summer like hot days, right? Like it's a very good yeah dish for takeout and delivery, and you know um, and I think like it's gonna be like on the like more it's gonna be like in a greater demand from now on as well. And yeah, evidently, right? A lot of big restaurant chains like they're like actually engaged in like developing these cold noodle like delivery takeout items, And once you make them, right, and it's very easy for you to be able, like, like for your customers to be able, like, customize them. Like, you can just have like all these different components, as a menu, and it just your customers can choose, pick like whatever they want, and then all you have to do is just package them, right? So it's very easy. And then like again, as I said, like the temperature wise, like we're talking about like food danger zone, safety temperature zone. It's great in that regard too. So yeah, yeah, it's like as like there's like there's gonna be like more and more demands on like takeout and delivery business. Whole noodles. Yeah, I'm sure like it's going to be like one of the ways, one of the dishes that like we should think and focus more and more on. So yeah, so that's what we had for this class. Thank you so much for attending this class, and then thank you. See you in the next class. Thank you. Bye bye.